What's good, everybody? Great to see you. Come on in. We've got some cool stuff to talk about today. I had to rearrange some things because of recent developments. Yeah, we had some interesting stuff come up in the past couple hours, didn't we? Governor Andrew Cuomo isn't looking too good, is he? All right, let me know you're live in the chat. Let me know how everything's going. David Gray, how you doing? Good to see you. All right, let's get it started. Welcome to another episode of A Fresh Perspective with Jeff Charles, where we prefer truth over narrative and principles over personality. And you know who I am. I'm Jeff Charles, the host of this here show. And we're going to have a good one for you tonight. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Like this video, share this video. And if you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. All that stuff helps me. Only takes like 2 seconds just to click a button. It's awesome. Now, if you want to support my work, you can do so at afreshperspective.locals.com, afreshperspective.locals.com. That's where you can get all of my premium content. I uploaded a little bit of stuff last week. I'm going to be uploading more this week. I'm doing more on critical race theory, so I'm going to be kind of doing more explainers on that. I've been writing some VIP articles for Red State. It's great stuff. Also, if you want to do a one-time donation, you can hit me up here. Anything helps. And also you can do super chats while we're doing this live stream. You can hit a super chat. Looks like somebody already did. Megan Cox, you are wonderful. You're always coming through. Thanks. I like the hair too. I'm trying out something new. I'm liking it. Also, earlier today, I had a fire conversation with Dana Lash on her show, on the First TV network. So check that out. I'm going to be tweeting out the link to it. I'm going to be tweeting out the replay. Very good conversation. We talked about woke theology seeping into the medical industry. And as you know, they're trying to push a lot of that woke stuff, not just in the classroom, not just in the military. They're also doing it in the field of healthcare. And I actually want to continue taking a look at that because I have a feeling that that's going to be one of the next major pushes here. I'm not saying it's critical race theory just yet, but I think that's where they're going next. So that'll be very interesting. Very good conversation. Dana's awesome. I've been a fan of hers for a while, so it was an honor to be on her show. Hopefully I'll be able to do it again. Also, before I go forward, I want to give a shout out to LibertyNation.com, which is a proud sponsor of A Fresh Perspective with Jeff Charles. Check out LibertyNation.com for all of your conservatarian news, original articles and analysis, videos, podcasts, Liberty Nation Radio, and their signature TV program, The Conservative Five, all on LibertyNation.com. Conservative news, where truth matters. Now, I had to kind of move some things around because I wasn't planning on talking about Cuomo today. So I'm going to try to get to everything, but anything that I don't get to, I'll get to it on Friday. Or maybe I'll just do it in a separate live stream, whatever strikes my fancy. Gilgamesh's work at. Is Sexual Chocolate the name of your all-banjo bluegrass band? No, dude. Sexual Chocolate, if you have to watch Coming to America. And it's funny because this scene is the only thing I remember from that movie. I saw it when I was a kid and I don't remember much of it. But there's a scene where Eddie Murphy, he plays multiple roles. And one of the roles was the lead singer for a band called Sexual Chocolate that was doing this performance. And he had this whole big greasy Jerry curl going on. So, when they were making fun of my hair last week, that's why I changed my name to that. So that's a very quick explanation. So I want to talk about Cuomo first, because this is a very interesting story. I mean, you probably already heard about New York Attorney General Letitia James dropping that bomb, and there's some interesting stuff going on here. Why did I cut my hair? I wanted to try something different. you know, and plus I usually don't have hair on the sides. I usually have it shaved, but I was just trying something different just to see what it looked like. But I decided I'm just going to do it again and just leave the top and just do something different there. So I'll be sticking with this for a while. Arnold, cool haircut. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. So before I get into that, I want to go ahead and play the video of Letitia James, you know, laying it out. And yeah, this is no bueno. Okay, here we go. Let me know if you can't hear it. You should be able to, though. And let me make sure I mute myself so there's no echo.
Audio files and pictures. These interviews and pieces of evidence reveal a deeply disturbing yet clear picture. Governor Cuomo sexually harassed current and former state employees in violation of both federal and state laws. The independent investigation found that Governor Cuomo sexually harassed multiple women, many of whom were young women, by engaging in unwanted groping, kisses, hugging, and by making inappropriate comments. Further, the governor and his senior team took actions to retaliate against at least one former employee for coming forward with her story, her truth. And Governor Cuomo's administration fostered a toxic workplace that enabled harassment and created a hostile work environment where staffers did not feel comfortable coming forward with complaints about sexual harassment due to a climate of fear and given the power dynamics. The investigators found that Governor Cuomo's actions and those of the executive chamber violated multiple state and federal laws, as well as the executive chamber's own written policies. This investigation has revealed conduct that corrodes the very fabric and character of our state government and shines light on injustice that can be present at the highest levels of government. But none of this would have been illuminated if not for the heroic women who came forward. And I am inspired by all the brave women who came forward. But more importantly, I believe them. And I thank them for their bravery.
All right, so you heard it there. Now, this is very damning. And I will say before I get into this, I know that Letitia James wants to be the governor. I'm not saying that's the only reason why she did all this. I mean, I'm sure she's doing her job just like she should be. But that was a great campaign ad. I'm just going to throw that out there. But, you know, she laid it all out. I mean, he is being accused by several women, not just 1, 2, or 3. I think there's like over 10. And I have the actual report up, and I'm going to go over just a little bit of that. But it wasn't just Cuomo. It was members of his staff who were protecting him and even retaliating against some of the women who were speaking up. This was a whole toxic atmosphere that he created. And this doesn't even get into the other types of abuses that he would do against his employees, employees of other people. He would verbally abuse people who worked for Mayor Bill de Blasio. I mean, this guy is rotten to the core. And this doesn't even scratch the surface when it comes to what he did with the nursing home scandal. I think that in that's a little bit different because I'm pretty sure that he didn't mean to get those people killed. At the same time, he should have known better, and he did what he shouldn't have done. Poor leadership, took no responsibility for it, got all kinds of accolades when he knew that he was responsible for these deaths. And so you pile this on top of all of that, it's amazing that he's still in office. Now, let me go to the report here just to read some of it. One of these people, executive assistant number one, I guess she didn't name herself, but the report says, quote, since approximately late 2019, the governor engaged in a pattern of inappropriate conduct with an executive assistant who was a woman. That pattern of conduct included close and intimate hugs, kisses on the cheeks, forehead, and at least one kiss on the lips, touching and grabbing of executive assistant's butt during hugs, and on one occasion while taking selfies with them. Comments and jokes by the governor about executive assistant one's personal life and relationships, including calling her and another assistant mingle mamas, whatever the hell that means. This guy's got some issues. It says these offensive interactions, among others, culminated in an incident at the executive mansion in November 2020 when the governor, during another close hug with executive assistant number one, reached under her blouse and grabbed her breast. For over 3 months, executive assistant number one kept this groping incident to herself and planned to take it to the grave, but found herself becoming emotional while watching the governor state at a press conference on March 3rd, 2021, that he had never, quote, touched anyone inappropriately. I'm sure you guys remember that. When he came out and gave that denial, that was big news. I mean, at the very most, he admitted to maybe making some people feel uncomfortable, maybe, and that he was just an affectionate guy because he's Italiano, that's what they do. And even when he gave that press conference, I was like, that dude's lying. That dude is lying his ass off, and it's gonna all come out. Now, here's another one of the people that he accosted sexually was a state trooper. I'm surprised he didn't get kicked in the nuts, but whatever. Here's what she said, her complaint. Quote, in early November 2017, the governor briefly met a New York State trooper, a woman, at an event on the Robert F. Kennedy Bridge. After meeting trooper number one, he spoke with a senior member of his protective detail about seeking to have trooper number one join the Protective Services Unit, PSU. This is the unit of the New York State Police that is in charge of protecting the governor and works in close vicinity of the governor. So she was hired on at his request, despite the fact that she didn't meet one of the requirements. I guess he had to have at least 3 years of state police service to join the PSU. So he knew what he was doing. He was going to try to hit on her, and he had her appointed. He used his power to place this woman in a situation where he could sexually harass her. Now, after she joined the PSU, the governor, quote, sexually harassed her on a number of occasions, including by running his hand across her stomach from her belly button to her right hip while she held a door open for him at an event, running his finger down her back from the top of her neck down her spine to the middle of her back, saying, hey, you. God, that's creepy. This dude is creepy. And he did this while she was standing in front of him in an elevator. He would kiss her on the cheek, and only her on the cheek, in front of another trooper. And he would ask to kiss her on other occasions. He would make sexually suggestive and gender-based comments. He asked her to help him find a girlfriend. And he described his criteria for his perfect girlfriend as somebody who can handle pain. This is a sick person right here. And he has a pattern of doing this, of asking females to help him find a girlfriend. He said on one occasion that the youngest he would go for would be 22 years old or what have you. And it goes on and on and on. I'm not going to read them all, but that gives you an idea of the behavior this guy was engaged in. And honestly, I don't get it. I don't get what goes through these men's heads. And I'm not saying that to virtue signal, because I'm not anything special. Most men would never do anything like what this guy is doing. Or yeah, well, I mean, because he was doing it recently. So I guess when you get sick with power, I mean, when you think that you can get away with whatever, you just do whatever the hell you want. But it's like these people don't think that anything could happen to them. And unfortunately, in a lot of cases, they're right. I don't know that anything is going to happen to Andrew Cuomo. Now, here's the thing, though. Letitia James said that he violated the law. So he broke the law. Now, we know he's not going to jail. That's just not going to happen. But it makes me wonder what kind of civil ramifications there are. Are they going to sue him? Is there not a class action, but are they going to file a lawsuit? I think it's almost certain that they will. I hope they do, because like I said, he's not going to go to jail for any of this stuff. He's not going to be held legally responsible for the deaths that he caused. Maybe civilly, that could happen, but again, he hasn't indicated that he's going to resign. He's still denying it. Now, if you go on Twitter, there was a lot of "but Trump though." Like whenever one of theirs gets caught doing something, that it's "but Trump though." And you know what? I'm not going to pretend that Trump was an angel. He was accused, I think, 26 different women. And I went through some of those accounts, and a lot of them seem flimsy. They're probably making them up, but not all of them are fake. I mean, I'm sure that when he back in the day, and I don't know if he still does this stuff, probably not, because that would have come out. But I'm sure that back in the day, we know he was a sleaze. We know the types of things that he was engaged in. We heard that tape with the grab him by the whatever. So I'm sure some of those are true. But then again, Biden has the same type of allegations, right? And he's still president. Nobody's trying to take him out. They're okay with it. I'm focusing on the Democrats right now, but this, you know me, and I'm going to call it out. This hypocrisy exists on both sides. And you got some Democrats saying, well, we got rid of Franken. We got rid of, what's his face, Anthony Weiner and stuff like. I'm like, come on now. Come on. Those were cases where it was pretty much proven that these guys were engaged in the activity. If there were just simple allegations from like one or two women, you would have done nothing. You would have allowed them to stay. And to some extent, there has to be a level of due process. You can't just, I'm not into the whole believe all women thing. The accusations do have to be credible. Like the ones against Kavanaugh, they bring up Kavanaugh. Oh, well, you guys let him go into the Supreme Court. You know good and hell well that he didn't do what he was accused of doing. You know that Christine Blasey Ford's accusations did not hold water. And the rest of the women were even worse. So that's a bad example. The best example that they have that I can think of would be Trump, because of the stuff that he did in the past. Now, with Cuomo, we're talking about stuff that he did 5 minutes ago. This isn't like somebody dredging stuff up from 10 or 15 years ago. He just did it. So this is a totally different situation, right? With Anthony Weiner, when that whole thing went down, it went down because something came up. It happened right then. Like nobody was bringing up stuff that he did way in the past. He had just done it. So it's a different situation, right? Now, if you get me something on Trump that happened right when he was running for president or what have you, you might have a point. But that's not the same situation. I can condemn both. But again, this is about Cuomo. I will give credit where it's due. There are Democrats who are calling on him to resign. Not everybody's doing the but Trump, though. President Joe Biden came out, and I will give him applause because he didn't have to do that. And the president of the United States, Joe Biden, called on Andrew Cuomo to resign. That is like the highest level of influence that we can get at this point. I do not believe that Senators Chuck Schumer or Kirsten Gillibrand have come out and said anything yet. Those are the top officials or federal officials that represent the state of New York. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has not said anything yet, but it's still fresh. I'm going to wait and see what they say. And if they're willing to call him out, I'll give them props. If they don't say anything, I'm going to hit them. I have a feeling that Kirsten Gillibrand will. I mean, because she's talked about these things before. But at the end of the day, is anything going to happen? I'm going to call it right now, the only way he gets out of office is if he's impeached. I think even though that Biden said that he should step down, I think he's going to remain. And a lot of that reason is because when they do sue him, he can use the lawyers that are afforded to him by his office. So I think that's one of the reasons why he might want to hang on, even though he knows everybody hates him. But is there the political will in New York to impeach him? There should be at this point. And I'm not sure how the media is going to handle this, because when this stuff was coming up before, when there were rumors of this or whispers of this, they didn't really want to deal with it. But part of me thinks now that they were more willing to deal with it earlier this year because they wanted to distract from the nursing home scandal. But at the same time, where is it at now? I mean, do they feel like they just need to throw him under the bus, or are they still going to protect him? They have a decision to make, and that will actually, I think, will be instrumental in determining what happens. He may step down, guys. He may step down. I'm kind of leaning towards he's going to try to stay in office for as long as possible. But I will be watching how the media reacts. This will be very interesting, and I'm sure I'll be writing about it and talking about it. But I mean, that's where this is right now. I mean, Letitia James just listed off the report, made the announcement, so we'll see what happens. What do you guys think? Okay. Can't wait to see what smoke and mirrors the MSM comes up with to deal with their darling being a creep. Yeah, there's a chance that they'll turn on him, though. There is a chance that they'll throw him under the bus. I wouldn't be too shocked if that happened. But at the same time, they may try to protect him too. But after President Biden coming out and saying this guy needs to resign, I mean, Biden didn't come out and say, maybe we should just wait for some more facts to come out, or Cuomo should figure out what to do on his own, or this is up to the people of New York to decide. No, he said that dude needs to resign. That, if he does resign, I think that will be what pushes him over the edge, that the president of the United States said that it's a wrap. Yeah, it's sickening that she is saying he broke laws, yet we all know he will see zero time. Yep, that's what happens when you're part of the elite class. And by the way, this would happen if he was a Republican too. I don't think he would see time either. Can we charge him for the murder of thousands of elderly he put in with COVID positive people? I don't think so. I don't even know if there's even a way to levy criminal charges against him for that. I mean, they would have to show that I would think, I'm not a lawyer, but I would think that they would have to show that he was doing this intentionally. I guess maybe he was being reckless and being negligent, maybe, but I don't know if that even applies to somebody who's in office like that. I'm sure there are all kinds of laws that protect these folks. I wonder how Chris Cuomo will cover the story. He won't, because he's named in the report too. He was helping his brother try to figure out ways to get out of this predicament. He was trying to figure out help his brother deal with the media to kind of alleviate some of the heat that was on him. Very much involved in this, total journalistic malpractice, but CNN will still keep him. They won't even reprimand him because they are not a media, they are not a journalistic outlet. They are a media activist outlet. Let's see. A person that thinks they can get away with abuse of power is a sign of narcissistic personality disorder. That's a good point. That could be a thing with him. Wouldn't be surprised. Stephen Sams, the man definitely doesn't have a daughter. His respect for his mama is a show. That is the actions of a sociopath, just a lack of conscience. It really is. It really is. And it makes me wonder, how long has he been doing this? This isn't recent. He had to have been doing this for years, like all over his career, like maybe even before he was governor. Like he didn't just start all of a sudden, right? Do I think he will step down? Yeah, I'm saying no. I don't think he will. It's possible. I'll say this. I'm about 65 to 70% that he will not step down. If he has to leave office, it'll be because they impeached him. So let me go on to the next thing, right, John? Yeah, not his first rodeo, Arnold. Yeah, definitely not. And actually, before I go on, I just want to remind you, don't forget to head on over to libertynation.com. They are a proud sponsor of my show, A Fresh Perspective with Jeff Charles. Now, there's a lot of things you can do over at Liberty Nation. It's not just about reading the articles, although that is the fun part of it. You can sign up for the daily briefing, or you can do the member zone, get premium content, or you can also just read the articles as well. I write quite a bit. I write almost every day for Liberty Nation, as do a lot of my colleagues, and I'll actually be quoting from one of their articles. Great stuff. Lots of nuance. They don't do a lot of the spin. When you read Liberty Nation, you're not going to read the same stuff that you hear everywhere else. It's not the type of thing where they just throw you red meat because they just want to keep you coming back. It's not outrage porn. That's what I love about it. They just give it to you straight, and they'll give you a solid analysis, unique angles. You'll dig it. So head on over to libertynation.com, conservative news where truth matters. Now we're going to stay in New York for this next topic, and we're going to talk about guns, gun laws. Now I'm going to be quoting from an article written by Scott Cosenza, Esquire, constitutional attorney, and he's very big on the Second Amendment, especially when it comes to Supreme Court cases. And he wrote about this situation going on with New York. Now, you already know that New York has some of the worst gun control laws in the country, like some of the most ridiculous and ludicrous gun laws. It makes me mad, and I don't even have a gun. Yes, I know. I need to build up my conservative cred. I don't have a gun yet. I'll be fixing that problem at some point. Don't worry. I'm still on the right. I'm still a conservatarian. Damn it. But even though I don't have one, I still stand up for the rights for people to own one. And it looks like other people are too, even on the left in New York. So Scott Cosenza writes, quote, gun control's racist past and present effects may accelerate its demise. Okay, so I'm actually going to stop there for a second. Have you guys noticed the push to make it seem like the Second Amendment was racist? They have actually been saying that bullshit. Like various activist media outlets, Democratic politicians have been saying the Second Amendment is racist. Somehow, like the right to bear arms was meant to. They don't even have a good explanation for it. Well, they don't have a good explanation for it because they're making it up. But they're actually trying to convince us that the Second Amendment has racist roots. And you know why they're doing it? Because anybody who knows anything about this issue knows that it is the gun control movement that has its roots in racism. The first gun control laws were passed specifically to prevent Black people from owning weapons so that they could defend themselves against racist hate groups like the Ku Klux Klan and other ignorant hicks. So that's why they're pretending that the Second Amendment is racist, is because they know that the side that they're on actually has its roots in racism. So the Supreme Court is expected to hear a case on whether the Constitution protects the right to carry a gun outside of one's home. This is a big point of contention in New York. Now, he says, quote, a number of public defenders from New York are working with a group called the Black Attorneys of Legal Aid to support the public's right to carry a gun. Their arguments were submitted to the Supreme Court this week. And Scott notes that this is a case of strange bedfellows because, like I said, these are left-leaning groups. They probably approve of some gun control measures at least, but they don't have a very favorable attitude towards the ones that are being implemented in New York. Now, these people, these groups, the public defenders, the other group, the Black Attorneys of Legal Aid, and there's also other groups that are involved in this too. They filed what's called an amicus brief with the Supreme Court. Now, Scott Cosenza explains that, quote, an amicus brief is a formal argument presented to the Supreme Court by an individual or group that is not a party to the litigation. So these entities aren't on trial, or they're not, actually, they're not the plaintiff, they're not the defendant. They're just an outside group who is submitting an argument to the court as to why they believe that something should be done. And in this case, they're arguing that the Supreme Court should rule that the Constitution protects one's right to carry a firearm outside of the home. Now, this group, Black Attorneys of Legal Aid Caucus, the acronym is BALA, BALA, and they describe themselves as, quote, an amalgamation of over 100 Black legal aid lawyers, and they joined with the public defenders from 7 different counties in New York, and also Brooklyn and the Bronx. And what's the reason why they're opposing these laws? Because of actual racism, in my opinion, I'll say, because I do think that, it's like Mastre says, all gun control is racist. But he continues, quote, New York Rifle and Pistol Association versus Corlett asks the Supreme Court to declare New York State's gun carry licensing scheme unconstitutional. And here's how they work. He says, quote, the state may issue permits to qualified people, but it doesn't have to. The final call on whether Empire State applicants are issued a license or permit depends on whether the state or county employee thinks it's a good idea. And that's literally the problem. If I lived in New York and I wanted to go obtain a license or a permit to carry a firearm, or especially if I wanted to conceal carry, it is completely up to the whims of the person who's in charge there. So they can say, I don't like the color of your shoelaces, therefore I'm not going to give you this license. Like, it's 100% up to them. There is no, as far as I know, no legal framework by which they're supposed to make these decisions, like it is in other states where it has to be, if you meet this criteria, then you get a license. That's how it is in a lot of states. And not every state, but I think New York is the worst because they don't have that type of framework. Now I'm going to quote really quick from yahoo.com. The original complaint filed by Nash & Co. pertained to a New York law that prohibits this concealed carry of handguns in public. The complainants sued after New York officials rejected their gun applications, claiming they failed to meet the standards of special need and proper cause to hold firearms under state law. New York typically reserves concealed carry permits for security professionals and others who can plausibly claim that they could be endangered without them in their occupations. So basically, you have to work a job where you could be in danger, like I said, security. Now, you can have a gun at home, but you can't carry them anywhere, what's the point, right? I mean, I guess you can use it to defend yourself in your home, but what if you're out and about and somebody wants to run up on you? Well, you're asked out. The guy who has the illegal firearm is going to get you. Now, the amicus brief, it says, quote, for our clients, New York's licensing regime renders the Second Amendment a legal fiction. Worse, virtually all our clients whom New York prosecutes for exercising their Second Amendment rights are Black or Hispanic. You see? The way these laws are set up, yeah, they don't say we specifically don't want Black people to have guns, but they do know that Black people and Hispanics are more likely to get busted on drug offenses than others. It's one of the reasons why Maj Touré set up Black Guns Matter, because he wanted to keep Black people from falling into that situation. Excuse me. The amicus brief also says, quote, New York enacted its firearm licensing requirements to criminalize gun ownership by racial and ethnic minorities. That remains the effect of its enforcement by police and prosecutors today. So they're noting the history of the gun control movement, which is decidedly racist. And they're arguing that their law saying that you can't carry your gun outside of the home, that's not constitutional. The Constitution says you have the right to bear arms, not just in your home. So this has been a long point of contention for advocates of the Second Amendment when they're going against New York. Now, the filing, the amicus brief, describes a litany of different examples of abuse that police have done to Black and brown people because they wanted to exercise their Second Amendment rights. One of these includes a mother who was separated from her child for a year just because she possessed a gun. So there's also the other issue, which a lot of people have talked about, and this isn't just in New York, but there is an issue of the excessive fees charged by New York, and also more broadly speaking, a lot of these strict gun control states, they charge excessive fees to be able to get a license or a concealed carry permit. And who does that disproportionately affect? Black people, poor people in general, really. But as it turns out, it affects Black and brown people who aren't able to pay the hefty fees that they charge. And Scott Cosenza, he notes, quote, still the real victims are everyone who can't brush off a $500 price tag for exercising a fundamental right, never mind their skin color. Now, one of the reasons why this case is interesting is because the Supreme Court seems to have been a little bit hesitant to take up cases involving the Second Amendment. Cosenza, in his article, he notes how in 2020, Justice Clarence Thomas wrote a dissent when the court decided to decline a bunch of gun cases. He said, quote, "This court would almost certainly review the constitutionality of a law requiring citizens to establish a justifiable need before exercising their free speech rights." He continued, quote, "It seems highly unlikely that the court would allow a state to enforce a law requiring a woman to provide a justifiable need before seeking an abortion. But today, faced with a petition challenging such a restriction on citizens' Second Amendment rights, the court simply looks the other way." I'm not sure why they do this, honestly. I'm not sure why they are so hesitant to take up gun cases. That's something I'll probably ask Scott about, because it seems like Thomas makes a good point. I mean, the Supreme Court is willing to take up these other cases. Why would it ignore cases that involve one of the most fundamental rights that the government is supposed to protect? So this case is going to the Supreme Court, though, so that's a good thing. I have no idea how this thing is going to be decided. This one kind of caught my eye when I was looking online, and I'm going to follow this case because this is very interesting. I want to see how this turns out. Is New York going to be able to uphold its law that requires people to only have guns at home? Because honestly, it's a ridiculous law, and I'm actually kind of surprised that this is just now getting to the Supreme Court. I think that New York's had this law for a while, but perhaps people have tried, and the SCOTUS has just kind of shut it down. What do you guys think? I mean, I think it would be a huge victory for people who value the Second Amendment, especially Black and brown Americans who want to be able to carry legally. One of the reasons why a lot of Black and brown people don't carry legally is because either they don't know the process, some of them might have a record, but they're not able to afford the fees. So they'll obtain a weapon illegally, not because they're going to want to be involved in a shooting, but to protect themselves. A lot of Black people illegally own guns to protect themselves, not because they want to engage in other illegal activity. What do you guys think? As Mashere would say, goofies. Yeah, they are goofies. I have zero faith that anything pro 2A will happen, and why? Lost cause. Well, I mean, it may not be in their hands if the Supreme Court is involved. They might be able, I mean, if the Supreme Court strikes down their law, they may try to find a way around it, but who knows? Frederick Douglass was the original gun control opponent. The bullet or the ballot box? Ballot or the bullet? All right. Making decent time here. And New York cops are very willing to bust anyone for gun stuff. It makes their day. Yeah, it sounds like it. Yeah, they're not very into people having guns. B. Lloyd, is that Brandon Lloyd? Yes, it is. I recognize that beard. What's going on, brother? Okay. The restrictive gun laws and excessive regulations is a reason why Democrat-controlled areas need another choice. Yeah, they do. I wish the Republicans could get it together. I don't think that New Yorkers are all that happy with their Democrats right now. I'm not saying that means that they would just automatically vote Republican, but you saw who they nominated for mayor. Not a defund the police guy, not a far left progressive. This guy's a law and order dude. And I think that might even happen across the country, because in pretty much every major city that has defunded their police department in a way that has resulted in fewer police officers on the streets, crime has skyrocketed. And people are mad about it. People are very mad about it, especially Minneapolis, where people are filing lawsuits because the city council and the mayor refuse to get more police officers on the street, even though homicide rates are going up. These people don't care. But that's going to get me off into a tangent. So let me hit this last thing here. I want to talk about NPR. And you know how much I love to pick on the media. These are a few of my favorite things. And they recently made a decision They announced it on Twitter last Thursday, or yeah, it was last Thursday morning. And they made an announcement that they were changing their policy regarding reporters being involved in political events or political movements. Now, normally actual journalistic outlets do not allow their reporters to engage in politically charged events. Like you're not supposed to be marching in a Black Lives Matter rally unless you're covering it. You're not supposed to be involved in other types of causes publicly like that, because there is an issue with objectivity, because reporters are supposed to be objective, not like commentators like myself, whose biases are people are upfront with them and they give their opinions, and it is known that they're there to give an opinion. Reporters, that's not supposed to be that way. They're supposed to just give you just the facts, just the story, and then you make up your mind as to how you feel about it. But we know that those days are dead, and they've been dead for a long time, for decades. But they've gotten deader over the past few years, especially when Trump got onto the scene. They just about threw off all pretense of objectivity, and they went full activist, and that is why I call them the activist media. And somebody else made that connection too. So NPR basically said, from now on, the reporters can become involved in any form of political activism that promotes the, quote, freedom and dignity of human beings. And they can do this on social media. They can do it in everyday life. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that this doesn't apply to any of their, Trump supporting employees, if they exist. I'm sure there might be some closeted Trump supporting employees, but I'm pretty sure that the events that NPR is talking about do not involve red MAGA hats, right? That's just not happening. NPR is a very left-wing outlet, and it's being funded by you and I, the taxpayers. And now they're just removing the mask. It's just like they're not even trying to pretend anymore. Like at least back then they kind of gave you a wink, like, yes, we are totally objective and we give you the news straight. But now they're just saying, hey, no, we're full-on activists. So in an appearance on Fox News, a conservative activist and author and scholar, her name is Ayaan Hirsi Ali. She's been around for a long time. I really like her. Her wheelhouse tends to be more of the realm of Islam and radical extremism. She was victimized by that as a child, and she's been a very outspoken critic. I think she's Ethiopian. I can't remember which part of Africa, but I want to say Ethiopian. I could be wrong about that. Don't quote me. But she was on Fox News and she was talking about this. And when they brought this up, she said, well, they should stop calling it journalism. She said, quote, if you want to engage in activism, go ahead. But to call it journalism, it's a joke. It's not journalism. It's not reporting. It's not analyzing. It's not investigative reporting, because for all of those activities, you require an open mind. You require a kind of philosophy that you follow the facts to where they lead. And then you have to have that disposition of honest, impartial reporting. That's not what activism is about. And she nailed it on the head. Again, that's why I call them the activist media. I used to call them like the corporate media, establishment media, legacy media. But I just kind of realized, no, I can't even, like, it applies, but the best moniker, in my opinion, is activist media. Don Lemon is not a journalist. He's an activist. He's what I call a media activist. Chris Cuomo, look at what he was doing with his brother. Dude's an activist. These people aren't concerned with giving you the facts. They're concerned with giving you the facts that they want you to have so that you'll believe the narrative that they want you to believe. When the media lies, like I always say, they don't typically lie by commission, like as in they're not usually just making shit up. When they lie by omission. So they give you only the facts that will get you to believe what they want you to believe. And they will leave out facts that go against the narrative that they want. I'm not going to pretend like this just happens in left-wing media. It happens in all media. I'm not even saying that everybody does this. But there are a lot of folks on both sides in the media who engage in this behavior. Now, I think a lot of times they're not even doing it on purpose, but I think sometimes they are. Sometimes it's just too hard for me to believe that they're as clueless as they are. Like if you look at the fine people hoax, there's absolutely no way that CNN actually believed that Trump said that Nazis were fine people. Anybody can read that transcript and listen to what he said and could hear him say that I'm not talking about the Nazis and the white supremacists because they should be condemned totally. It's common sense. So that was a lie. That wasn't a mistake. They lied about that. Even some people from CNN ended up coming out and saying, no, Trump didn't say that. But again, what do? They would play the clip and then cut out the part where he said, I'm not talking about those racist assholes. He didn't say that, but they cut that out, and they did that on purpose. So again, when the media lies to you, they do it by leaving stuff out, not by making things up. Because if they make something up, it's much easier to debunk that. But if they leave stuff out, then they can still say they're giving you factual information. They're giving you stuff that actually happened. They're just not giving it all to you. So that's a lot of what NPR did. Now, NPR's ratings have been going down over the past since 2017. I looked. Of their top 20 shows or stations, their listenership has been going down. I'm not sure if they're doing this because of that or if they just don't care. Because again, if that's the other thing about activists. They're not in it for the money. Now, when it comes to corporate media, they are in it for the money, but they're also in it for the mission. So you do have that balance between where they will accept lower ratings if it means that they can advance an agenda. I think it's a kind of a tightrope that they have to play. Now, Ayan Hirsi Ali was not the only one who criticized NPR. Glenn Greenwald, who is an actual journalist, he said, quote, "Can't wait to see how the studiously nonpartisan and steadfastly non-ideological NPR interprets which protests count as advocating for the freedom and dignity of human beings and which ones don't." Great question. Because like I said, if a bunch of MAGA people want to protest something and one of NPR's employees goes to that protest and participates, I guarantee you that person's going to get fired or demoted or punished in some way. We know how these hard leftists work, right? And NPR just isn't trying to hide it anymore. And I just find it so interesting that they are willing to expose themselves this way. I mean, there was a time where they at least pretended. And here's the thing, they're doing this in an environment where Americans' trust in the media has been plummeting for the past few years. Study after study after study after study have shown that Americans do not have the same level of confidence in the press as they had in years past. It's just amazing that they don't care about this. Anybody with an IQ above room temperature can see that the media has had a very friendly relationship with the left for decades. But we used to always just complain about the bias. Back then, it wasn't as extreme as it is now. That's why now I call them activists. We're not talking about media bias anymore. This isn't like they're just kind of slightly skewed towards the left. Now they're just full out the ministry of propaganda for the Democratic Party. It's horrible. The good thing about this is that there are other ways to get around that. But I mean, if you watch cable news, you're watching propaganda. I mean, you're not watching really straight news. And at this point, I'm not even sure if that exists. I mean, there are some outlets that are okay. Like Reuters, they lean a little bit to the left, but they're not nearly as bad. I can do Reuters. I can even do The Hill. And I can do some of the others that I know are skewed because I know how to read through the bias. I know how to take out the lies and get to the facts. But in this day and age, you have to read stuff from both sides because you won't get the whole story if you don't. If you just read media from the right, you're not getting the whole story. If you're just reading media from the left, you're not getting the whole story. The closest you can get to getting the whole story is getting it from both sides, which is why I will do both sides. I use ground news a lot for that reason, because I can see how CNN covered something and I can compare that to how Fox covered something. So the reason why I thought this story was important because the media is getting more brazen with it. And this is just yet another sign that they're not even trying to have any level of objectivity. I wouldn't be surprised if other activist media outlets like CNN and MSNBC followed suit. Although MSNBC, they pretty much admit their bias. I mean, they're honest about it. So I don't have much of a problem with them. It's the people who lie about it. I wouldn't be surprised if they started doing the same thing, because at this point, and honestly, I can see why they would, because why pretend anymore? But what's the point? Nobody believes that you're objective. Nobody believes that you're objective. So you might as well just pull out the mask and say, okay, yeah, let's just go for it, dude. Let's go for it, dude. Let's just, this is, be activists. What do you guys think? All right. Actual journalism existed. Yes, it did. And here's the thing. I mean, to be fair, it's impossible to not be at least a little bit biased. Even if you're reporting straight facts, some of that bias is going to seep in. I think people are human. People understand that. There's a difference between having some bias seep in, though, and just going full-on activist, right? Daniel Durham, she was born in Somalia. Okay, Ayaan Hirsi Ali was born in Somalia. Okay. That was close. Come on. They're getting paid to lie. Yes, they are. And again, I don't think that they're always doing it on purpose. It depends on the person, depends on the story. There are times where I believe that they're lying, and there's other times where I think that they're just getting it wrong. And there are other times where I think that they're just looking at things through their progressive lens. Let's see. Fredo is just the dumb one that CNN could control. Hey, that's like a racial slur, isn't it? That's like the N-word to Italians, according to Cuomo. Again, I consider myself, okay, this is Sam Slady. I consider myself a pro-gun black leftist. The right loses the battle when they don't defend Philando Castile. People like John Carrillo. Oh, I think you're saying people like John Cardillo have guns in their profile and demonize black gun owners. Where's the lie? If you're a conservative watching this, where is the lie? It doesn't exist. He's right. And to be fair, I will say that there were a lot of conservatives who defended Philando Castile. More of the rank and file people. White, black, otherwise on the right. But we should have been, our influencers should have been the first ones and the loudest defending Philando Castile. And we weren't. There were some people who tried to figure out how to make it his fault. I didn't see it as much in his case as I did in others. But again, even if they weren't trying to do the usual back the blue no matter who, we should have been the loudest ones out there. We should have been like, no, this was wrong. That cop should be in prison, yada, yada, yada. Because he was complying with what the officer said, even though the officer was giving conflicting instructions. He was already hyped up. He told him that I'm not going to rehash the whole thing again. This point is correct. We lose, especially we lose with black people when they see us not defending Philando Castile, and they look at us thinking, well, if Philando Castile was white and this happened, would you be defending him? I can't say that they wouldn't be. So this is the part of the conservative movement's culture that we need to fix. Because again, I don't think people do it on purpose. Some do, but our influencers have a duty to handle this stuff responsibly. Because if you're just a rank and file, yeah, you can say something on social media. That's great, and you should, but that's not going to be on the airwaves, right? It's the people who represent us, whether it's fair or not, that need to come out on this stuff. And again, this should have been a conservative issue. So yeah, I can respect that point. I can't say anything against it. Autry, what's good, brother? Good to see you. They know that Republicans are made up of weak people. Thus, the GOP is in power, They know that Republicans are made up of weak people. Thus, if in power, won't slash them. I'm not sure what that meant there. Oh, wait, I lost something here. Wait, Trisha, oh, my hair does look great. Thank you. I appreciate it. What did you miss? You're going to have to watch the replay to this. Or have somebody run it down for you. Let's see, Stephen Sams. To hell with those clowns. As a pro-gun white right libertarian, I've been saying he's trash for years. I will always hold down the post with you. They shall never tear us asunder. Let's Let's see. Wait, I'm sorry, my chat thing keeps messing up. No, they would not defend them. Conservatives, at least before the past 4 years, were pro-police against white defendants too. Well, that's probably true. But I think in that specific case where it involved somebody having a legal firearm, I think it might have been different. And again, to be fair, I am seeing attitudes on this stuff changing on the right. It takes time, but like I said, like the way that I've seen conservatives react to some of these police shootings 5-10 years ago, they wouldn't have reacted this way. So there is positive movement in the right direction. Let's see. Totally agree. Look at Daniel Shaver. See, here's what's interesting about that. There's a few. I'm going to have to do a separate video on what I want to say right now. But it's weird to me that so many conservatives are so angry about Ashley Babbitt. They weren't angry about Daniel Shaver. They weren't angry about Ryan Whitaker. They weren't angry about Duncan Lemp. They kind of pretended to be angry about Tony Timpa only because they wanted to contrast that with George Floyd. If what happened to George Floyd hadn't ever happened, we wouldn't even know who Tony Timpa is. So you don't have much outrage there, but with Ashley Babbitt, you do. And I do believe her shooting was unjustified. But I just listed off 5 white men unarmed who were killed by police unjustly. And there's not this level of outrage. Here's the thing. For 2 or 3 of the people who I listed off, Black Lives Matter came out in support of those folks. Hunter Brittain, or Brittain, I don't know how you pronounce his last name. You know who showed up at his funeral? Ben Crump, Al Sharpton. White guy that got shot by the police unjustly, unarmed. I think what would happen if more white victims were showcased? I think that Al Sharpton and Ben Crump are onto something. And I'm going to save that for another episode. I may even put that behind a paywall, actually. I've been meaning to address that anyway. But yeah, I mean, look at Daniel Shaver. But here's the thing. I will say that conservatives were not outraged by those deaths, but I didn't see them defending it a whole lot. I didn't see them defending the officers as much as they would in, I'll just say, other circumstances. It's not the same treatment. And their deaths were clearly unjustified in my estimation, especially Daniel Shaver. That man should be in jail. He should be under the jail, and he got off. I think in every single case that I listed off, the officers got off. So yeah, it's just kind of weird to me. But there's a lot I have to say about that. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that video sometime this week because that's some interesting stuff. Let's see. White conservatives are starting to see what we've been telling them. January 6th, prime example of COINTELPRO, but now white conservatives are locked up for trespassing charges. Yep. And that's wrong. I mean, the people who actually engaged in violence, they should go to jail. That's it. Now, I'm not saying that they should be given sentences that would be beyond what other people would get, but they should serve their time or whatever the punishment is for that. People who are trespassing should get whatever slap on the wrist punishment for trespassing. Now, to be fair, I'm not sure how many people who are trespassing that are being placed in solitary confinement or being locked up. I'm not sure about that yet. I don't have all the facts there. But I do think that there's some treatment that should be going on. People being kept in solitary confinement, having to strain water through socks to get clean drinking water. Like, I don't care what your political affiliation is. If they were doing that to Black Lives Matter, I'd be pissed at that too. It's ridiculous. All right. This is Autry, by the way. You just keep switching around. What's going on? Let's see. Oh, you're having issues with Periscope. Okay. I haven't used Periscope in a while. All right. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and sign off there. But thank you very much for showing up. I appreciate it. Again, please share this video. Please like this video. Hit that like button right now. That'll be awesome. Hit that like button. And if you haven't already subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. Thank you very much for showing up. I'll see you again on Friday. And until next time, keep your minds free.